We are live. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Valuable Mind podcast. This is Brandon Pony, the host of the show. We're super excited to have this very unique guest on with us today. On the show, we highlight CEOs, founders, people that are in sales, business, authors all over the world and all over the country that have been and are in the trenches right now in their business. They didn't just do it once or did it years and years and years ago. They're doing it right now. And we're very excited to welcome Beverly Flaxington and her story. So she's known as the human behavior coach, three-time best-selling and Golden Award-winning author, college professor, still does it to this day, which is very impressive to juggle all of these things and still be an active business owner. But she's the founder and president of The Collaborative, which is a firm that's dedicated to boosting business effectiveness through better understanding people and not just processes. But she spent decades turning behavior insights into practical success strategies for entrepreneurs and advisors alike. Beverly, super excited to have you.
So happy to be here, Brandon. I really appreciate the intro. It was a wonderful summary of a lot of years of work. So thank you.
Try to keep it short, but real. A lot more obviously to talk about. So very excited to dive in more about your background first, of kind of how we got here, and you obviously having this business for so many decades. It's very unique, but obviously catch us up.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm sure a lot of your listeners, business owners and entrepreneurs, might sometimes wonder, how did I get here? And I have to admit that even decades later, I wonder that. I started with a corporate career like a lot of people do. I did a stint in executive recruiting. I hated that. I had a really big job for one of the large investment firms in our industry. And at one point had many people working for me, was just continuing to climb the ladder. It was a great opportunity because I got thrown into so many things that no one else wanted to do. And I was just kind of a student of everything. But along the way, I kept thinking, I could do a much better job at this if I was on the outside rather than the inside, because the internal politics and just getting things done. So started the business actually because I came out of the financial industry with the idea of investment education. We don't do a good job of educating our youth, teaching people about
Mhm.
finances. Quickly found, Brandon, that couldn't make a lot of money doing that. Reason you don't have a lot available is people don't like to pay for it. But what they did want to pay for was the depth of sales and marketing acumen that I had and my original co-founder had. And so that's really where we started. And so we've been able to just stay very dominant in one industry, focusing on, one end client, if you will, and really reinvent ourselves many times. That's not to say that what we do isn't applicable for a lot of other industries. We often get referred out by our clients to somebody in pharmaceuticals, medical, retail, but we have really stayed pretty focused, and so we've got a good reputation, and it's worked really well for us. And I will say personally, it's allowed me the opportunity to do a whole lot of things I wouldn't have been able to do had I stayed in corporate life.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Very well done. And you've been all over the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Our clients are everywhere. Actually, the furthest I've gone for a client is Hong Kong. I got sent there to deliver some sales training. Been to London multiple times. So,
Mm.
Canada, that sort of thing. So, yes, I mean, we are technically international, but most of our clients are domestic, and clients are everywhere. In fact, I get excited when I have a local client because I'm like, oh, I could just drive there. But it's unique, very unique.
Yes, we also, yeah, we have clients. One of our first clients was on the East Coast, and then we got into Canada pretty early on in our business. But people are people, and their challenges are worldwide, universal when it comes to human behavior. Um, exactly. So love to see it. And Hong Kong, that's yeah, but very exciting.
That was an interesting, I'll just tell a quick story, which people
Please.
may have a negative impression of me, Brandon, but it was a months long project. And my father actually passed away. and we had to have the funeral the day my associate and I were leaving to get on the plane for Hong Kong, but there was
And
no way to say no. So we
mm,
had my dad's funeral. We had a wonderful get together with a lot of people. And then we left for the airport and got on the plane and had to go and deliver the training. So I share that only because when you are a business owner, you just do what you have to do and what clients are counting on you for. But that was one of my most
mm,
extreme examples. So where you just pull yourself up and say, I got to go do this.
that's so true. Wow, I've seen that, and you got to do what you have to do every time because and being nimble and keep going and pick yourself up when things like that happen. Wow. Well, tell us more about the collaborative. You definitely highlighted it very, very well, but give us some even more in-depth on what it's been. And has it been the same over these 3 decades, or has there been some changes? Obviously, there's been many things that have happened in the last 30 years.
A couple of things that I'll highlight that I think are interesting. So again, grew up in the financial business, very black and white sort of business, and good with numbers, knew how to do deep presentations around, efficient frontier and portfolios, etc. But even in those days, I was always the person who would want to look at the people aspect. In fact, my colleagues at one point made a sign for me, said the doctor is in, because people would come to talk to me. I would try to help people get along. So I became certified in hypnotherapy. I got very interested in how the mind works, why certain people achieve goals, others don't. And I really, really became a student of behavior.
Hmm.
But it early on, never talked about it, Brandon, because it just wouldn't have been, especially in our industry, socially acceptable. Well, fast forward different iterations over time. Now it's one of the things I'm most proud about, and people ask me about. So you're a hypnotherapist. Tell me about that. Oh my gosh, you're certified in Reiki. I love holistic healing. So it's been such an interesting journey because things have evolved so much. And of course, they continue to evolve, as you and I talked about with AI and other things. But it's been so gratifying for me because a lot of things I cared about a long, long time ago were not really avant-garde. Now it's
Right.
valuable. So
Right.
I think what's been nice for me is, yes, we've reinvented ourselves many times. If you look at, kind of our clients over time, where we focus, what we've done, it has changed so dramatically. But I feel like at the core, it's all still really what I cared about in the first place. And that's just a really unique experience, not having to kind of give up core values, but more actually make those core values valuable, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yes. Oh, I love it. And things, and obviously human behavior and neuro, I mean, the psychology behind, how people think and how it affects everything in their life. I mean, it made me think of one of my favorite books, which was What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, by Shat.
Love that book.
Amazing book, incredible. Everybody should read it, listen to it, something. But that mental room of everybody has their own room, and they're in it every day. And if it's negative, it's old, gross furniture. You got to get rid of it. You got to replace it. You can't sit on the floor. You got to have, good things. And I mean, for me, I've literally applied it, and everything we have in our life has been because of what I envisioned and talked about and good things. Incredible. I love that.
And there's another part, if you don't mind me bringing this up, because so I wrote a column for Psychology Today for a long time. It was a passion of mine. And they publishing firm reached out to me and they asked me to write a book on self-talk. And so I wrote a book called Self-Talk for a Calmer You. But the point about it is, I am absolutely stunned, Brandon, how often I will find myself with very, very senior executives bringing up the issue of their self-talk. So again, I mean, I could run most of the businesses of the people I work with, a lot of business knowledge, a lot of tactical, practical knowledge. But it's so funny how oftentimes that's more where the conversation goes because lack of confidence, imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
inability to get out of my own way. So I really appreciate you bringing it up because I'll reflect on it sometimes, but I don't talk about it a lot because I don't judge it.
Hmm.
I like it when somebody will share. This is what I'm struggling with because it allows me to bring it to the surface and talk about it. But most people, even the most successful executives, are very unaware of the power of that.
Wow. But obviously very skilled in other areas. But that one it definitely can be argued, but I think probably not successfully, is one of the most important
And that's
above.
like, yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're great.
No, and that's the other thing I think is so important to point out though. Like we work with large, if you think about what matters and what we look at for success, senior people, making a lot of money, running a great business, having a great entrepreneurial idea, all those sorts of things. So in fairness, people, they're very, very successful, but nobody's ever taught them anything about this piece.
Yeah, and it's their own journey. And because a lot of these companies, they won't provide those things. It's your own journey. You have to go out and seek it out and get it and find it yourself because, everywhere you go, there you are. You got to take those. You have to go out and really create your own, I guess, recreate yourself if you haven't done it yet already. Yeah, because it'll affect every aspect of the business or the role that the executive has and others. That's amazing insight. Very, very cool. And it's obvious how much content and verbally and posts and books that you've done that you've seen that a lot. That's extremely interesting to point out though, as kind of I don't know, flaw missing, something missing, I guess.
Yeah, because I think, people who hire us, it's because, they want to get their sales team to the next level, or it's an executive that wants to get to the next level, or somebody is underperforming, or so it's very business oriented, right?
Hmm.
But I think that we miss the fact, like my favorite joke is because I've been in B2B sales my entire career, but I tell people there is no B2B. You're selling to people on the other side.
Right.
And so I think we just have this misconception, Brandon, that, I come into my corporate job or I'm running my business or I'm, this entrepreneur and I just need to have this seriousness about the business. Of course you do. Like we have to keep things going. But it is that willingness to look in the mirror. We find ourselves talking about emotional intelligence so much. There was actually a study in our industry by one of the most prestigious technical organizations. I would have thought I'd never live to see the day that they published a white paper saying IQ is very important, and it is. You better know what you're doing. But they said if you don't partner it with EQ, you're actually doing a disservice to the people you're serving.
Emotional intelligence.
And
Yes.
that's where I was like, whoa, I have waited long enough that this is now coming to the forefront and it's okay for us to talk about it. But it is still difficult for a lot of people because you have to look in the mirror. We all have areas. I mean, I always say I'm a work in process and I will be till the day I die. So, I think it's hard though for some people because I'm the business owner. I'm successful. I have this great business. You do, and no one's trying to take that away from you. That's great. Let's validate that. And also, let's see, how could you become an even better leader?
Right. Because always can be.
All of us. Yes. I actually have the interesting fortune, Brandon, of I have a small firm, but one of my key people is my daughter who works for me. And you want to have an opportunity to force yourself to look in the mirror a lot, hire somebody in your family because she does like to continually point out the places that I could improve. But you know what? I take that feedback. I will say she's never brought something up to me where she wasn't completely on point.
Hmm.
And I think about what can I do differently, and then I do try to put it into practice because I just feel it would be almost unethical to teach some of this stuff, work with people, and not be willing to do it myself.
Constant, never-ending improvement. That's great. Well, so obviously, yeah, you've helped leaders and advisors across industries for decades. One of my questions though was about, how to fix so like today's, fast changing business world, what's like the most common leadership blind spot, or was that really it? That's probably one practical step that to start fixing like tomorrow.
I would say, though, that the second really is around the ability to coach team members effectively. So actually there's two pieces to it, Brandon. And I used to in my early life, I taught entrepreneurship 101. I taught small business management. So talked about these things a lot. But one of the hardest things for business owners or entrepreneurs is we want to be able to do it all, right? You have a control thing. Like this, my firm, like whatever we do for clients, however much money comes in, end of the day, responsibilities on my shoulders, even though I have wonderful people who work with me. So I think, being able to look and say, but what am I really good at? And what should I just out and out delegate to someone else and not have that need to really be able to control it and have it done my way? And I think that's hard for most of us to do. But the second thing is some people are solo people. Maybe they're just using some outsourced resources. That's great. Minute you have though your first hire, you do have to get really good at coaching. And most people are not taught how to do that well. So we talk about it right as feedback.
Yeah.
Who wants to get feedback? I don't want you to tell me I'm doing something wrong,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And there's a great quote by a guy named Marcus Buckingham, and he says, ask the average person, would you like to get some feedback? And in their minds, they'll say no, even while their mouth might be saying, yeah, sure, because, it's hard for me to hear what I'm doing wrong. But if you can take the idea of I'm a coach validates for people where they're doing things well, and let's build on it, and then helps them course correct. But the one thing I've really learned very much by using behavioral profiles, by looking at the behavioral pieces, to quote Popeye, I am what I am. And for me, as an example, I'm not very high on the data, quality control, details scale. And I used to be the one to sit here and do the finances. And I made so many mistakes because I don't see things. It's just not my skill set. So I think, but if somebody hired me and asked me to be their CFO, it'd be a problem. So
Mm.
I think, understanding too that, we want people to improve and change. So we spend all this energy trying to fix them instead of trying to build on their strengths and then find somebody else to do the things that this person isn't good at or I'm not good at as a leader.
Who Not How, another fantastic book, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I often say, Brandon, there really are we look at the people as the problem. It's usually the processes and the placement of the people that's the problem. Now, that
Mm.
doesn't mean you don't get somebody who wants to mail it in, who isn't engaged. I get it. People are people. But I will say, on balance, people do get up in the morning wanting to do a good job. And then we create systems and we put them in roles that don't allow them to do that. And then we keep banging on them to try to get better. You could tell me all day long to sit here until I get that Excel spreadsheet right, and I'm simply not going to see it. As soon as I give it actually to Sam, my daughter who works for me, this is her skill set. She will find it immediately. And I'll be like, I just spent an hour, but that's why I no longer spend that hour because I know that's not my skill set.
And then you find someone that does or that has. Exactly. Wow.
Key thing if you want to be able to scale as a business owner.
Huge. Another great lesson. So pivoting a little, obviously 3 decades, we've seen COVID, we've seen 2008, we've seen the dot-com boom, like we've seen the internet, we've seen a lot of different things, in the last 30 years, and had the great fortune of having clients, not nationwide, but worldwide. But as of right now, and going into 2026 with kind of all the changes, what's like the main challenge that the collaborative is kind of focused on right now?
So it's interesting. I mean, keep in mind too, we lived through 2001. I'm in the Boston area. Many of our clients at that point were in New York. We had clients on those planes, we had clients in those buildings. So I would say of all the journeys we've gone through, that was by far the most difficult because it was personally devastating and, of course, professionally devastating. And then, of course, there has been, as you say, market turmoil. There's been the pandemic. I mean, I think as we go for so one lesson, Brandon, is I no longer worry about anything because I kind of feel like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. That doesn't mean we don't plan. That doesn't mean we don't prepare. That doesn't mean we don't forward think about where things are going. I just don't expend any energy worrying about it because what am I going to do?
Hmm.
You have to just figure it out. So that's one lesson I would say to business owners too, like laying awake at night and it's like, but what if this happens? Like the what ifs can really kill you. So put them into action, right? Plan for what if. Have some sort of a strategy you're going to put in place. I do think, of course, the looming thing is going to be AI and what that is going to mean not only for us, but especially for our clients. Now, I will say in our industry at one point, everyone was afraid robo advisors were going to take over. Didn't happen. Everyone was afraid mutual funds were going to go away. Didn't happen. Everyone told us, insurance companies are going to be out of the game. Didn't happen. There's been a lot of predictions in our industry that have not come to fruition. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not elements of those things. So I think it will be interesting. We very strongly encourage our clients to get schooled in this. I'm very excited from an efficiency perspective. We'll try to work with people and say, focus on the right things. And they'll say, oh, yeah, but I'm mirrored in all the things I don't want to do. So I think there's great opportunities there. But it's so nascent for so many people that I think it's just this big question mark that looms above everybody's head. So that's a big one. And then I also think for us, it really is trying to figure out strategically whether we scale and hire more people and go really full board to gather all the opportunities that are out there, or whether we kind of stay doing what we're doing, which has worked very well for us. But at the beginning of every year, I have to say, Brandon, I feel like that's always my question. And I've had different answers over the years. Um, but that's probably something that I think about. I'd like to see us do more product stuff rather than in-person stuff. So, figuring out the technology around that. So I'd say those are the three. So it's AI very much for our clients, how to get efficiencies, what it's going to mean
Hmm.
strategically. Do we keep doing things the way we have, or do we take a step back and think about a different model? And then how do we productize a little more? My original partner and I used to call it 1-800 ship it to me, which is hard with the sort of work we do.
Right.
But how do
Yeah.
we do a little bit more 1-800 ship it to me?
Right.
So
Oh, very intriguing. Very intriguing. Yeah, and I've seen that. It's definitely business owners are cautious. They're cautiously curious about AI, and they've seen the robocalls and they're like, I don't know about this. But now obviously what they're doing with Claude, ChatGPT, and Grok and all of these is they're becoming wicked smart. Cars are driving themselves now. And oh, it's what we found with our clients too, is that the challenge, I guess, in the beginning was being able to implement these very powerful tools, but without stealing the voice or taking the soul of the company. away when delivering, to their clients. It was definitely the early challenge, but now we see that ChatGPT is what everybody uses, obviously very common. And it's just a brain. It's a great brain to talk to, and you'll get amazing information. But then what we do is we've given it arms and legs, and which then it has the ability to actually do things at a much faster rate than a team could even do. And that's where it's becoming game changer, but not at a sacrifice of either morals or, a human element like this that we still need. I mean,
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it that if you can frame it as more efficiencies, helping you do things in your business that maybe you just don't want to do, processing components. But I think people are just so afraid that it's going to replace me. And I just think it's not going to replace people, but it is probably going to enhance what people are able to do.
hmm
So that's somewhat of the position we try to take because a lot of advisors, there's so much confidentiality in our business. Compliance, I mean, you cannot send a personal text. Everything has to be recorded, everything has to be cataloged. So I think there's also a lot of fear just around, will clients trust it? And what happens when you tell a client, hey, I'm going to co-pilot this, interview with you or this meeting with you. So it's like anything. It's just people will get used to it. But the question is, how do I best use it? And I think a lot of people, they don't even know where to start.
just
So,
like the
so I
internet.
will validate what you're doing, I think is extremely valuable for people who just even simply don't know where to start and can express their fears to you because you understand what's behind some of those fears.
And we've all had them, and many that had similar fears when the internet started and cell phones and the rapid. And I don't want to be on a FaceTime. What is that? A FaceTime call? I don't trust this. This is going to get my personal information.
I will say, I still can't get used to though, I might be out somewhere doing something and one of my kids calling and saying, Mom, why are you in whatever town? Or I'm like, what is up with this stuff? I don't like this tracking technology.
That's how
Still can't get
friends,
used to that.
we're
My mother
so
couldn't find
connected. We
me.
know we know where we are in the building that we're sitting in. Like we know where our yes. Yeah, it's oh my goodness, it's wild. Wild, wild times. Well, Beverly, thank you. Thank you so much for taking this time. Obviously, you are an active business owner, and we always want to respect every guest we have, and the time that we have. Anything else you'd like to share before we start to close out?
I think, Brandon, just, there's probably just two things. One is, as business owners, you really do have to embrace continuous learning. I mean, we're never done. And so even though, I mean, I know my craft very, very well, but I'm always like, oh, what's that new thing? What's that new thing? And a lot of the leadership I teach to grad students, I talk about this because I think people think they're going to get to the pinnacle, right? I own a business. I know my business inside now. So continuous learning is just critical. The other thing is, don't put aside the other things in your life that you really, I don't know, love and have a passion for. So we think about it, of course, always as family, critical. But, years ago, I woke up thinking, oh boy, someday I'm going to retire and, I'm going to get so much more involved in rescue. I was always a big animal person. And then I was like, but why am I waiting for that? So every Monday morning since 2006, I go over the shelter, I clean the cages. I've got 10 dogs of my own right now, several cats. And so people will be like, that's not possible. You travel, you did. And I'm like, yeah, but it is because for me, it was so important. And I said, I'm not waiting until I'm 70 years old and I don't have the energy to do this. I'm just going to do it. So I think it's really important to just remind business owners this, it's our babies. Like this is our passion, what we do, but it's not all of who we are. And so
100%.
extending that to things that you really care about, I think just really important. Otherwise, you kind of feel like the business is a burden at some point.
Wow. Amazing. And when it's going well, you're doing well, but when it's going bad, it's the end of the world because you tied your identity to it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Very well said. Yes.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
those would be my two parting ideas.
Oh, very, and I love that. I love that. Another little thing that you're doing and juggling behind the scenes, but making it work and making it happen as everyone should because they really shouldn't take themselves too seriously.
That's when the trouble starts, right? My persona, or, when I
Yeah.
walked out of my corporate job, I can't tell you the number of people that called to ask me, like, emotionally, how was I doing? Because I no longer I had an office that you could have done ballroom classes in. I had all these people reporting to me. I had a senior title. People wanted to like stand in line to get into my office to talk to me, right? And now all of a sudden, my original partner and I were sitting at our desk, we're looking at each other like, yeah, nobody cares whether we're here or not. But it was such a good, helpful experience because inside of it, I was like, but I'm still me. And I've always kept that image no matter what I do. So people, give me these accolades. I had someone earlier today, he was like, you're a unicorn, all these things you've done, blah, blah. To me, Brandon, it's like, I'm just like getting started. Like, okay, so what? Because tomorrow's another day.
That's
So
right. Not done yet. Still plenty to do. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Your experience is so grateful to have you sharing your experience
my
and
pleasure.
it's obvious. So, but I definitely wanted to thank you again for being a guest on having Beverly Flaxington, the human behavioral coach. Please, oh, last thing is, of course, tell us where and how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website's often the best place. Pretty simple. It's The Collaborative, just has a hyphen, the-collaborative.com. Um, you can submit a request, check out what we're doing, and all my books are available on Amazon. If you'd rather just read what I do, that's fine too.
Yes, love it. Thank you again, Beverly. This has been amazing. And this has been the Valuable Mind podcast. Have an amazing day.